As a part of our effort to keep you informed on NCW Live channel, we'd like to bring into focus today the Chelan County PUD and its General Manager, Steve Wright, who joins me right now in a casual conversation about the affairs of the PUD and changes that are coming in the future, and also maintaining some of the services and programs that have benefited this area in Chelan County. First of all, Steve, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I want to say it's great, Steve, to see you at NCW Life. I know you've got decades of experience here in following news in this area and following the PUD, so it's great to be with you. And it's really great to have NCW Life doing this kind of work because it helps us in terms of promoting the transparency that we want to have. We want customer owners to understand what we're doing here, and this is a benefit for us. So thanks for coming.
I think over the past several years we've seen the steps that the PUD has been taking to increase transparency and to enhance the information dissemination.
Well, we believe very much in this theme of customer owners, that the customers are the owners of the system, and as owners, if we're going to follow what they want, we need to understand what they want. So there's a dialogue that needs to happen, and this kind of conversation helps us with that dialogue.
Well, we're talking to you right now after the Board of Commissioners yesterday adopted the 2018 spending plan, budgets going forward, and I wanted for you to have an opportunity to talk to our viewers about some of the highlights of that budget and how your long-term strategy plays out in terms of how you're going to be providing stewardship for the public funds.
Well, adoption of budgets is a watershed moment for us. We begin preparing our budget in February, and we come to a conclusion in December. So a lot of thought goes into it. What we're doing is we start with our strategic plan, and hopefully many folks by now have heard we have three big priorities in our strategic plan: investing in assets and people, reducing debt, and initiating a public power benefit program. It was built around the vision in 2014, 2015, when the plan was being put together, that we were likely to have many, many good years of great financial returns. The wholesale market looked really good. Our cost structure with hydropower looks very good in a high-priced wholesale market. And so we were thinking about how we would invest all of that potential benefit. The one thing that has changed pretty dramatically from the time of the strategic plan is that the wholesale market has come down significantly. So we've seen a lot of natural gas coming into the market, which is a direct competitor of ours as a result of fracking and other opportunities to be able to produce more domestic natural gas at lower cost. And a lot of solar and wind, particularly in the West, which is another competitor of ours.
So the alternate sources of energy then are affecting that surplus power that you normally sell on the open market.
Yeah, no question about it. So we were selling it, as was anybody in the West, roughly about $50 a megawatt hour back in 2013, and the prices today are somewhere between 25 to 30. So it's pretty much a halving of the cost of the revenue that we would see from those sales.
What percentage or what slice of the pie does that take out of your budget?
So out of our budget, okay, so you got me on that one.
Sorry about that.
Well, I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about just how to calculate that number, but
it's obviously a large portion.
It's a big portion, right? Yeah. So it's particularly a big portion because it's our retail sales are subsidized by our wholesale sales. So when we reduce the wholesale revenue number, that then translates into a problem for us because we're using that revenue to keep our retail rates down. So in addition to the fact that we've had a reduction in the wholesale market, we also, as we have worked hard to understand the state of our assets, are coming to understand that they need more work than what we thought back in 2014, 2015. Larger amount of capital investment than we were anticipating. A good example was the one that we used at the board yesterday, where we have bridge cranes. So if you've been to Rocky Reach Dam and you've looked down at the turbines, there are these huge cranes which can move 500,000 pounds because turbines are big things. And they've been operating since the dam was complete in the early 1960s. So this is the first time we've taken them apart and actually seen what's going on inside of them. And we've discovered there are more cracks, more wear and tear, a few more things because we can understand stresses better today than we could back 50 years ago. A few more things that need work. So we're going to need to spend some time and some money, about $500,000, to try to work on fixing those up.
Sounds, though, that you will be doing this at a savings by doing it yourself, rather than going out to contract on these things.
Well, it's a combination of doing it ourselves and contracting, to be candid, because we have a lot more work. What we anticipate is doing about double the amount of work on the hydro units that we would do in a normal period. And we don't want to staff up for that double amount of work, because then you would be overstaffed in the next period. Mm-hmm. So we're doing a combination of using our own crews and then working very much with contractors as well.
So the 2018 budget then is going to reflect some major capital improvements.
2018 will be the largest capital budget in recent memory. We go back to about 2000 in terms of looking at capital budgets, and certainly since the turn of the century, this is the largest capital budget by a large margin. That really does come out of the strategic plan, because remember, in the strategic plan we said we're going to invest in assets and people, and the assets are the biggest component of that. And the hydro units are the biggest component of our asset base.
How is this going to affect your service on your long-term debt?
So, number one, we set a goal to reduce our debt and try to get down to below 35% debt-to-equity ratio. So, we were at above 70%, over $1 billion back in that early 2010 period. We expect next year to hit our 35% target. We will have reduced our debt by about half. We'll be just over about $500 million next year. So that's a pretty substantial achievement. We're now trying to look forward and say, where do we want to go in the future? And we're going to continue to do some more debt reduction, but probably not at the pace that we've been at. We will have achieved our target, which was based on what the bond rating agency thinks are necessary to be at the highest rating. We have one of the highest ratings of any consumer-owned utility in the country. We're in the top 5. So we want to be there. And then from that point, we use debt to manage both making sure that we're making investments for the long term, but also manage for rates.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, the PUD is also going through a process of evaluating your facilities, relocating of facilities such as the headquarters. How is all of this playing out within, let's say, next year's budget?
Well, our buildings and facilities are assets just like everything else. They're things that we have to manage for the long term. Candidly, we did not have a strategic facilities plan before about a year ago. So we spent a fair amount of time just going through and understanding what's the state of our buildings and then what makes the most sense for the long term. We keep living by the motto of best value for our customer owners for the longest period of time. So when looking at our facilities, we said, what will be the least cost strategy over the long run? Brought in some folks from the outside who've helped us work through that. And we've now presented to our board and said, in some cases, refurbishment of buildings will make the most sense. In some cases, replacement of buildings will make the most sense, both in terms of cost and in terms of customer service. So what do I mean by customer service? So for example, 70% of our truck rolls from basically either this facility or the one up on Holly Street go north. And if you're going to be crossing the Wenatchee River Bridge on a regular basis for 70% of your truck rolls, and particularly in the likelihood that we're going to have increasing traffic up there, you want to think about, is that the best place for us to be located? We also have been trying to think through, so if a customer walks into this building, are they getting a customer-friendly experience? And candidly, if you come in and you want service, you have to go to 3 or 4 different places here, and it's hard to find them in order to be able to get service. So can we improve that customer experience at the same time by reducing our costs over the long run? We believe the answer to that is yes, but when you do this kind of analysis, you have a lot of assumptions in it. So we're now in the process of testing the assumptions. What would it cost for us to buy land if we were going to move? What would it cost for us to build buildings, can do RFPs and check and see how things are going? We got the first test of that yesterday. We have committed that we would build a new storage building down at Rock Island. We're storing a lot of stuff out in the elements, which generally doesn't tend to lead to longer life. And we estimated the cost of that, and the cost came in about $800,000 lower than what we estimated. So we feel like we're going to take these steps incrementally. We'll learn as we go, check and see what was our assumption, can we get it for that price or lower? If we can, then we likely would proceed. If we can't, then we stop and re-regroup.
Interesting. PUD, if I can shift focus here a little bit, Steve, and again, we're talking with Steve Wright, General Manager of the Chelan County PUD. The PUD, like many organizations, is in a state of transition with the new technology, digitizing most of everything you do now. How is that affecting the PUD going forward?
It's one of our hardest challenges for a couple of reasons. One, it's a big change. It's a big change for the way we even make decisions. To become a data-driven organization where you actually have real data and you're not making decisions subjectively is a difficult change for everyone to make. But it's an exciting change too, because everyone can see it happening in their personal lives, the way the digital revolution is occurring. And there's every reason to believe it should be happening here at the PUD as well. Probably the biggest one, there are two big ones right now that we're really focused on. Number one is smart meters. Can we put meters on the side of your house that will allow us to know, even before you call us, that there's an outage at your house, and to be able to see the scope of that outage in order to be able to better understand what might be causing it, and to be able to get trucks rolling faster so that we can actually improve the restoration time for you and other customers. We believe, and there's plenty of evidence out there, that we will be able to do that. Close to half of the meters in this country are now smart meters, where you actually do get data immediately back into your control center. And you also reduce the fact that you don't have meter readers going from house to house. So that saves costs, which ultimately comes back to the benefit of ratepayers. It also means that we don't have meter readers walking in your yard. So a whole bunch of benefits come associated with that sort of digital transformation. Another one that we're very interested in being a leader in the hydropower industry is, can we put sensors inside of turbines to better understand what's going on inside, and hopefully be able to do predictive maintenance rather than respond to a forced outage where something has gone wrong and now you're trying to fix it. Turbines are really hard to fix. Think for a moment, again, if you've walked into Rocky Reach, you've seen how big they are, and you know there's that crane up there that lifts 500,000 pounds. How difficult it would be to actually pull that turbine out to try to figure out what's going on, and then to do all the work that needs to get done. If you can get in front of that and actually understand that there might be a problem occurring before it occurs, and be able to do the simple fix rather than the very expensive fix later, it could improve our efficiency substantially. And this is the fascinating part. Can we improve the efficiency of the PUD through the digital transformation? So my instinct is yes, that we can. It's difficult as well, though, because you need really great people to do that. You need folks that really understand information technology. And so it's bringing the workforce around as well that can be able to take advantage of these substantial new technologies and understand, how could I apply that in an environment like a turbine, which is not an easy environment. You've got lots and lots of water moving very quickly through a turbine. It can do a lot of damage, these kind of things. Fascinating challenges for us.
You also have to overcome some public concerns, though, if you're going to pursue smart metering or advanced metering, if you will. There are concerns about public health issues or privacy issues as well. How do you overcome that?
Well, first of all, those are all legitimate issues to be debated. So the number one thing is understand them. Do as much as you can to understand what the public's concerns are, and go collect the best possible data. We are fortunate to be served by trade associations and things like the Electric Power Research Institute. We have the ability to be able to go off and identify who the best and the brightest people are in the world that we can look to help us understand what the potential impacts are, what types of strategies we should employ to try to make sure that we protect people's health, that we protect people's privacy. All of that has gone into, this has been a process that has been intense for the last year, but actually has been going on at the PUD for more than 10 years to look at smart meters. We've been able to take advantage of all that in order to try to make the best possible decisions.
Fiber, that's, I guess, a big success story here at the PUD in the way that network has been expanded out to the county.
It's an amazing thing. So I'm an electric guy. I spent my whole career in the electric system, and I've had to learn a lot with respect to fiber. But number one thing you learn when you come here is that rural America is generally poorly served with respect to broadband services. And that is not true here in Chelan County. We have a premier system that competes with any urban area in the country in terms of the ubiquity of the service and the speed of the service. So it's 70% of the county now that has the availability of the service and has the availability of 1 gigabit service. That's pretty remarkable. It is, for a county, rural counties generally work at a competitive disadvantage against urban counties. This gives us the opportunity to be able to compete at every level, whether it's our businesses or our kids. We get to compete. The program is being expanded, so this is part of the Public Power Benefit Program. We continue to grow the program at a couple of % per year of number of houses passed with PUD fiber service, and our goal is to get to 85 to 90% over the course of the next 7 to 8 years.
It's interesting too, the role that the PUD plays in economic development here in our area. What with the fiber capabilities now and that network plus the low power rates, it makes this area an awfully attractive place to locate a business, as we're starting to see here with a number of new businesses moving into the area, and all use, let's say, the Diamond Foundry as one of those. Can you speak to that and on how the PUD works with, like, say, the Port District and the county and the city in pursuing economic development?
Well, I think, number one, we have a really good working relationship with both the port and the local cities and the county in terms of thinking through what kind of growth do we want. This is one of the key questions. It's not growth at all costs here. That's the number one thing that I think I've learned since I've been here. People are very interested in being thoughtful about what type of growth actually makes sense here. Number one, I think everyone probably understands we have some of the lowest rates in the country. And part of the reason for that is we take that wholesale revenue that we generate and we subsidize our retail rates. To the extent that we grow loads here, we take sales away from our wholesale and translate it into subsidized sales at retail, with the exception of when we put in place the high density load rate last year. Spent a lot of time talking about that and thinking about that, and the idea was to try to get to a rate that actually recovers our costs, that it's not a subsidized rate, which then makes it easier in terms of saying to the rest of the community, if we attract load here and it's using the high density load rate, it's not cutting into your benefit and hence increasing your rates. So the Diamond Foundry is a great example of that. We are applying the high density load rate there. We are looking at other opportunities that come in the door and trying to think through, are you prepared to pay that rate? And candidly working with the others in the area to say, is this a load that people are interested in? Is it bringing a good type of economic development? And this is the kind of thing that really the PUD is not in charge of. We support others' efforts, and we try to be clear about that. We look to others to provide us some guidance with respect to, okay, what is it that this county wants in terms of economic development?
And it fits within that general scorecard that you use, right?
It does fit within the scorecard of the best for the most for the longest. Always trying to think through what creates that best value for the most people for the longest period of time.
What's your impression of your current board of commissioners?
Oh, I've got one of the best boards in the state, and I'm not kidding you. I have a long experience in public power in the Northwest. I know a lot of people in the Northwest. My fellow general managers I know really well. I'm very fortunate to have a board that has chosen and wants to be strategic in the role. That should be the role for a board. Our challenge is making sure that we feed them strategic information so that then they can make strategic decisions.
One final question I have for you, Stephen. This is the big picture question about the Columbia River and the treaty that we have currently with Canada.
Yeah.
I know that you've been intimately involved in the negotiations there, following and tracking that. Where do we stand?
We are deeply disappointed by the pace of the discussions regarding the Columbia River Treaty. We think it has not been managed well by the State Department.
And why is that important?
So the Columbia River Treaty was a fabulous treaty put in place 60 years ago, provided a lot of benefit, led to the construction of dams up in Canada that allow us to control the flow of the river and produce more value in the United States. But the original terms of the treaty were anticipated that they would play out over 60 years and then the deal would be renegotiated. It's basically a commercial sale. And the world has not played out in the Northwest or Canada the way that it was anticipated, and the benefits that we are currently providing back to Canada in terms of power and energy and capacity are well in excess of the value that's derived from the operation of those dams. So we're overpaying, basically, on a treaty by a substantial margin, and we believe that needs to get fixed. The treaty anticipated this, fully anticipated it, included a provision in the treaty that gave each country the unilateral right to terminate on 10 years' notice, with the theory being that it is a commercial arrangement. Folks will re-argue the commercial terms at some point, and that should happen over a period of time. 10 years is a good period of time to negotiate. We'll put in place terms that make sense for both countries. We are really disappointed that it has taken way too long to even get to the table with the Canadians to initiate the negotiation, and we believe that the notice to terminate the power provisions of the treaty should be issued in order to set off the window, the clock, for making a decision within 10 years. 10 years is plenty of time to renegotiate the terms. So we have strongly urged the State Department to move forward on that basis. They recently have replaced the lead negotiator, which we think is a good thing. We're supportive of that, and we're hopeful that this new person will come in and show more willingness to move forward quickly than what we've seen in the past.
Steve Wright, General Manager of the Chelan County PUD, I want to very much appreciate your sitting down and taking some time with us to explain what's happening here. Is there anything you'd like to add before we let you go?
I would just like to say thanks to our customers. We've had a really great engagement since I've been here. We do expect that our strategic plan was a 5-year plan. And so I would anticipate in 2019 we'll be back out again to talk to folks about the next strategic plan. And a lot has changed since the last one. So we very much hope that folks will look forward to that and find a little time for us to be able to join us for that conversation.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.